Hello everyone, I hope you've been enjoying your winter break so far. Sorry for getting this to you guys so late. I've been pretty busy with some other stuff, but finally here's the WebGL workshop for the Snowman. Alright, so to start off with, we're going to use this link in the browser. This contains all the files needed to start off the project. So I'll give you guys some time to copy this down if needed. And then I'll also put it on the Facebook group as well, so we don't need to worry too much about that. So just as a short little introduction, OpenGL basically is a cross-language, cross-platform library that's used to render the graphics you see in modern applications. For example, we use OpenGL in games such as Angry Birds, Dota, RuneScape, StarCraft 2, and other things such as Google Earth. So it's used for a wide variety of programs. And what WebGL is basically the web version of OpenGL. The main difference is it's written in JavaScript, whereas OpenGL is written in other languages such as C++ or Java. And for WebGL, you don't really need other external libraries. So that's the nice thing about it. So that's why we're going to decide to use that. All right, so whenever you open the template that we have, you're going to want to go into sample project over here because these are the files that we're going to work with. And the main one we're going to be dealing with is animation.js. So if you open that up, you'll see a lot of code. So don't be too intimidated if this is too kind of complicated. I've written most of it so that it's pretty straightforward to follow along even if you don't have prior programming experience. So if you open up the WebGL template that says start, you're just going to see all this commented out code. So if you go towards the middle where it says start coding here, this is essentially where we're going to start off with. Alright, so the first step is to define the variables to create the snowballs for the snowman. So we're just going to uncomment this by getting rid of the two forward slashes. And what we're doing here is we are creating three different snowballs. The first one is for the middle snowball, and then we have the bottom snowball as well as the top snowball. So that's the first step. And what mat4 is basically a matrix of 4 dimensions. You don't really have to go through this in too much detail. It's a little complicated, so just take it for what it is. So the first step is to, or the second step I should say, is drawing the middle snowball. So this is done using this.msphere.draw, and what you have here are 3 different arguments. This one's always going to be the same. It's going to be a graphic state, and this is just a reference to an object. So if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. This part is always going to be the same. What you pass in for the second argument is whatever variable you have. So it's going to be the middle snowball in this case. And the third one's just color, which is white. So all of this is already predefined, so don't worry too much about this. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up in a web browser. So I think it looks best on Google Chrome. And then since you could access it on both Windows, Mac, Linux, I think this is probably the best option. So what you're going to want to do is open up index.html because this is what renders the actual graphics over here. Alright, so let's see what it does when we refresh. This is how it originally looks, and if we refresh, we're going to see we created a snowball. To move forward, you press W on your keyboard, and so basically this was derived from a class project. So the way you move around is using W, A, S, and D, where W is moving forward, A is to the left, D is to the right, and S is moving back towards us. And if you want to move, rotate the camera around, you press F, and then you move your mouse in the direction that you want to rotate. Alright. So that's the first step, creating the middle snowball. So the next step is to draw the bottom snowball. So let's uncomment these. So what we're doing here is we're multiplying the bottom snowball with the translation of -2 in the y direction. So the way graphics libraries work is it involves a lot of linear algebra. So implicitly what this is doing is it's taking the coordinates of the bottom snowball over here and it's multiplying it by a translation of -2. I don't want to go into too much details of the math behind it, but that's basically how it works. It's a lot of matrix multiplication behind the scenes. So this moves the snowball down from the center over here. This next line scales it so that it's a bit bigger in the x and z coordinates because we want ideally the bottom snowball to be a bit like body part. And lastly, we're going to draw the actual snowball. So it's basically repeating this step over here, but for the bottom snowball. So if we save this and refresh, we see that we've created the bottom snowball. Alright, so now that we've got that down, we want to actually draw the head of the head snowball. So what we're going to do next is we're going to essentially repeat the same process, but this time we're going to move up in the y-axis. So it's moving the snowball up from the center. And for this one, you want to make it a bit smaller in the x and z coordinates because faces are generally smaller than the rest of the body. So that's why we're scaling it down by 0.75 and in both the x and the z directions. So if we save this now and refresh, you see that we've generated the face of the snowball, or snowman, sorry. Alright, here we go. Great, so now we have the general body and proportions of our snowman. We want to define some more specific facial features as well as clothing and apparel for our snowman. So next we want to define the variables for the facial features. So let's do that. So we're going to create variables for those. We're going to create a left eye, a right eye, a hat base, the top of the hat, a nose for our snowman, mouth left, mouth middle, and mouth right. So I forgot to mention something important. So when you're doing the actual drawing, you have to specify the type of shape that you're going to draw. So this is defined in the shapes.js file. So this is also in the sample project folder as well down here. This part's a little bit complicated because it's a lot of math, and it's pretty tough to explain. Like, I don't really know the exact details myself for a lot of these, but we have most of the basic shapes defined. So if we go up here, we have cubes, for example, spheres, fans, strips, and cylinders. We also have a hand. This is something that I defined for another project I made, but we'll go into more detail for that later. So let's go back to what we were doing, drawing the eyes. So as we can see, for graphics, the basic step is always defining the variable first, and then performing various matrix operations to make sure it looks correctly. So what we're going to do here is we're going to translate it left, up, and slightly forward. So this is all of this is respect from the center. So in this case, it's going to be the middle snowball. So everything is drawn with respect to that. So we're going to move it slightly to the left, we're going to move it up, and we're going to move it slightly forward. So it's not actually inside the snowman when we zoom in. Okay. And we're also going to scale it to make it smaller so it looks like a proper eye. So let's save this, refresh, and then here we go. We have a little black eye over here. If we rotate it, we could see that it's inside slightly. Sorry. It's not too far out, and it's also not too far in, which is what we want. And then You can just move around slightly and see how it looks. I think it looks fine. So let's try to implement the right eye right now. So it's a similar process, except this time you're going to move it to the right. The Y direction and the Z direction is going to be the same, as well as the scaling. You're just going to move it in the positive X direction, which is to the right of the center. So let's refresh. Sorry, I didn't save. Here we go. So as we can see now, we have 2 eyes for our snowman. So that's the first step of defining these facial features. The next step, I would say, is drawing a hat for a snowman, because it tends to get pretty cold. So it's nice to have a hat in order to stay warm. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create the hat base. So we're going to move it up from the middle snowball. So it's going to go up 3 coordinate spaces. We're going to scale it such that it's flat on the y-axis, but it has some shape in the x and z axis. And this time, oh yes, yeah. So we're just going to draw like before. So it's going to be a sphere, but it's going to be flattened out, in contrast to like some of the previous ones. Like for the body, it's just like a normal sphere, and for the eye, everything's been scaled down 0.1, but in this case it's just going to be flattened. So let's save this to be safe, refresh, and here we have the base of the hat on top. So it's a nice oval shape, kind of. We can move in, go over it a bit, see how it looks. So I think this is good. So let's add the actual top of the hat to give it the extra features it needs. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we place the base of the top right above the bottom of the hat. You're going to rotate it 90 degrees in the X axis so that the top is aligned correctly. So if we didn't have this line, we would see that it looks sort of weird. So let's try it actually. So the way cylinder was defined in the default code was like this. So this isn't really what we want. We want it so it's rotated 90 degrees in the x-axis, so it's facing upright. So let's uncomment this line. But before I run it again, we want to shrink it such that the x portion is a bit smaller than normal. And instead of drawing a sphere this time, we're going to draw a cylinder. And this is going to give it the hat shape. Boom. So now it looks like a hat that you would expect someone like Frosty the Snowman to wear. So if we loop around, we can see that it's pretty well defined in all directions. So I think this looks fine now. So that was that part. Next, we're going to draw the nose. For this one, we're going to use the fan shape. So this is another default shape that's provided in this skeleton code. You're going to move the nose up from the center and slightly forward. You're going to scale the nose so that it's a bit smaller in the X and Y axes. And you're going to draw a red fan. So let's see how this looks. Nice. So it's a nice little carrot-shaped nose. Doesn't look too red. It looks somewhat orange, which is nice. So then we have most of the facial features defined for our snowman now. We just need to draw the mouth. So let's see what we can do there. So it's going to be a snowman with buttons for the mouth. So it's going to be one on the left, one in the middle, and one on the right. So let's see how that looks. So we wanted to be slightly below the nose, so we're keeping track of where exactly we were in the Y direction. So for the nose, it was 2 above the center. So we want the mouth to be slightly below that, so it's going to be 1.75. And we also want it to be slightly to the left of the left eye, which was negative 0.25. So we did negative 0.375 here. And then for the Z direction, we want it slightly inside, I would say, because the head is not a perfect sphere, so its depth is not as deep as it is for the eye. So let's check this part, and we'll make it brown and slightly differentiate it from the eye color. So here we go. We have the left part of the mouth. If we zoom in a bit, you can see that it's slightly inside the top snowball. So this is fine. Notice that, yeah, like I said earlier, it's not a perfect sphere. So that's why we need to compensate and make this slightly closer to the center of the sphere versus the eye, which is 0.75, so it's further out. Alright, so we're essentially going to do the same thing for the middle part of the mouth. So let's uncomment this. Pretty much the same process. For the X direction, it's going to be lined up to the center. It's going to be 1.5 from the middle snowball, and we're going to have it directly underneath the nose. And depth is going to be the same for all parts of the mouth. So let's run this now. So we have that. Nice. Alright, so let's finish off with the right part of the mouth. So it's essentially the same thing. It's going to be 0.375 in the positive X direction, so it's going to be right over here. Height is the same as the left side. Depth is the same, and the scaling is the same. So let's run this now. So now we have a complete mouth. So we fully defined all the features of our snowman as of now. So what are some other things we normally see in a snowman? You would have buttons in the middle for the body, as well as arms. A scarf, I would feel, is kind of complicated. You could probably do it with a cylinder, like for the top of the hat, but that would take some time to implement. Feel free to try that on your own if you want. But for now, we'll just define buttons as well as arms. So we're going to define the variables that we did earlier. We have a middle, bottom, and top button, left arm and a right arm, and then a left hand and a right hand. Alright. So let's create the middle button. So you want the button to protrude out a little bit, so that's why we translated one position in the Z direction, and we're scaling it so that's 0.1, just like the eye and the mouth. And we're going to make the buttons black, so let's see what happens here. Actually, let's make it blue, just for a contrast. Right, sorry, hold up. What did I do? Is there no blue? Oh, apparently there's no blue. Sorry. Let's make it green, I guess. So, I didn't define the color, that was the problem. Yeah. It's not green. Is it? I guess it is. It's kind of weird. Oh well. So basically now we have a sort of blue-greenish button. Yeah. So we'll basically repeat the same process essentially for the rest of the buttons. So Let's uncomment this. Just like the top Snowball, it's not a perfect sphere, or actually it is in this case, but the depth is not the same because, yeah, you know, the radius isn't, well, if you look at it like this, you need to put the button deeper inside to compensate. So that's why it's 0.9 in this case, and negative 0.5 is because we're gonna put it at the bottom. So that's what happens here. Yeah. So if we zoom in, space pretty nicely, and we're just gonna repeat the process for the top button. So the only difference between the top button and the bottom button is instead of going negative 0.5, you're going to go 0.5 in the positive y-axis. So here we go. We have nice blue-greenish buttons. So the next step, let's draw the arms of our snowman. So let's create the left arm. We're going to translate it negative 1.5 from the center of the snowball. You're going to scale it such that it's thinner. The way you would do that is by making it longer on the x-axis and shrinking it down in the y-axis as well as z-axis, which is the depth. And then let's draw, in this case we're going to draw a cube because we want the arm to be sort of like a rectangular shape. So here's our arm for now. This fits in nicely into the body. It's nice cubic shape over here. So we formed a nice little rectangular prism over here. So let's repeat the process for the right arm. Actually, let's draw the left arm first. So what this does is essentially, the main difference now is that we're going to use the custom shape that I had to create for another project. So it's called mhand, and it's defined up here. Sorry, it's over. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. Here it goes. So originally, it was actually derived from a sunflower, so it's in another project I could show you a bit later. And what you pass in for the argument is the number of in this case it was petals, but now it's going to be fingers. So we're going to have 5-fingered hand. So let's run this code now. So this part kind of looks weird. I don't know if this is ideally the best way to draw like a hand. It looks more like a windmill or like a star. It looks kind of weird to me, but more advanced graphics would use more specific shape, but then I'm not sure exactly how to do that right now, so we'll just settle for this. So that was that part. So there were some subtleties we had to do. For the rotation, we had to rotate it 45 degrees in the x-axis because originally it looks kind of like this. I mean, I guess it's kind of the same. Wait, actually, I can't even see the fifth finger, so yeah, that's why I rotated a bit 45 degrees. So that's that part. Let's do the same thing for the right arm. So let's draw the right arm first. It's basically the opposite of the left arm. You're going to translate 1.5 in the positive x direction. Scaling is going to be the same color. So this creates the right arm, which is a rectangle using the M cube. And now we're going to do the same process with the right arm. This one we had to do a little bit of more in regards to rotation, because otherwise, if you didn't do this part, the hand would be oriented in the same direction as your. I guess in this case it's technically the snowman's left arm, but from our perspective it's the right arm. but it would be the same direction as this arm over here. So that looks kind of weird. And also it's a little bit offset. So that's why we want to incorporate this rotation. So now it's aligned correctly. So we can see that these are essentially symmetric on both sides. If we go here, then if we go here, it's lined up. So we have our buttons, we have our arm, hand, facial features, the nose, the eyes, the hat, and then the mouth. So if you guys want to get more creative, you could add more features like the scarf mentioned earlier. I currently don't know how to do that, but yeah, you could probably use like a cylinder like we did up here, wrap it around the body using appropriate translations and things like that. So as a quick recap, the way you would start off is basically you would define your variables first of the different types of body parts you want over here at the top. Then what you want to do is you want to first translate it so that you know where it is relative to a reference point. In general, you want your reference point to be the center of your entire universe. So that's going to be over here. So if you want to move down, you translate in the negative y direction. If you want to move up, you translate in the positive y direction over here. Left, right is the x-axis, and in terms of depth, forward and back is the z-axis. Next, after you translate your variable, then you want to scale it. Sorry, actually, before you scale it, you want to rotate it first, if necessary. So then the way this works is for your first argument, you have your degrees that you want to rotate it, and then you want to specify in which axis you want to rotate it in. So in this case, it's the x-axis. If you want to do y, you would set this to 1. If you want to do z, you would set that to 1. If you want to get a little creative, you could use sinusoidal functions like cosine, sine, and then set it according to time. In this case, we're not creating anything super fancy, so that's why we're just leaving it like this. And then after you rotate it, that's when you want to scale it. So then this would allow you to shrink it down from the default size. And in order to actually draw things, you need to do this dot shape dot draw with the corresponding arguments. This dot graphic state, which never changes, you will always pass this in. This is going to be your variable that you modified in the steps above, and this will be the color, which is defined up here. If you want to define new colors, you can. You could do new material and then vec4, and you have to specify the exact parameters for I believe it's RGB, RGBA. So I'm not exactly too sure of these off the top of my head, but you could Google these if you want to add like blue in this case that I didn't add. Okay, so now that we've defined our snowman, you can move on and create your own shapes. Graphics is a pretty cool topic if you guys are interested in learning more of this. I have some other projects like from that exact class. So like one of them is like animating a bee. So it's essentially the same thing. We have different shapes over here. You can hit Alt-A from the sample code in order to actually animate the bee. So this part, it's a little bit more complicated, but yeah, it's more complicated. It's relying on the rotation and using the sinusoidal function. So we won't go into too much detail here. So that's one of the projects I did. And the other one was we made a game animation. So in this case, just made like a platform game. It doesn't fully work, unfortunately, but most of the gameplay mechanics is there. I just couldn't get the graphics right, unfortunately, but this is where I defined the sunflower. So that's why I defined it as a sunflower because that's essentially what the shape was supposed to be. So that was that part. So if you want to get more into graphics, there's a lot of cool projects that you could reference like online, or if you're interested, you would take CS 174A. There are prerequisites to that class, but CS 32 is what you need. But it's a good class, I would say. It's definitely graphics is definitely a very cool application of linear algebra and computer science. So yeah, I would definitely look into that. Yeah. So if you want to get the finished template of the code without having to uncomment like all of these lines and just like run it in the finished form, you would just download from this link over here. I'll give you some time to look at it, but I'll also attach it to the corresponding Facebook posts. So yeah, that was our Snowman workshop. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys could create some cool shapes of your own. Yeah, thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your winter break, and hopefully see you guys start of next quarter. All right, thank you guys.